I don't know about you guys, but every day I wake up and open up any form of social media, the only thing I can seem to find is an absolute endless feed of dog water garbage. I'm talking AI slop, rage bait, emotional tear jerking, borderline pornography, actual pornography, and a massive dollop of whatever goddamn government propaganda from the party that I'm supposed to be programmed to feel a specific way about, depending on my side of the political aisle. That's the only thing I can seem to find. Gone are the days of opening up Instagram and being able to actually scroll to the end of your feed where you were promptly told that you've seen all the new posts for today, and instead you're left with just being bombarded by garbage just so you can stick around for another picosecond so that Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk can beam into your brain another advertisement. The dead internet theory, which was already becoming popular before AI, LLM chat models, and video generators existed, has only become more and more true every single day. Hell, it's at the point where I'm beginning to wonder if I'm even interacting with a person at all every time I comment on a post. There's probably a cell phone in a farm somewhere in an underdeveloped country replying back to me. Like, man, what a missed connection. I'm sure if we ran the numbers, it would become obvious that many of us have most likely replied to a propaganda bot from one of these countries, or even from here in the United States, thinking to ourselves the whole time, there's no way this motherfucker is that stupid. And yet, we keep scrolling. And for what? Like, that's a genuine question. Are you actually really enjoying this? Are you enjoying spending an average of 4 to 9 hours a day sitting in front of the screens? And when you finally have a moment of silence and you sit there with your thoughts, do you find yourself immediately reaching for your cell phone or the computer or the TV or the tablet just to silence that thought in your brain that's trying to tell you, hey, I'm not having fun? Well, I do have a fix for you, and I am going to call it Just Say No. That's right, we're bringing back Dare, but with a new twist. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what happens when you consume all this slop all day, why you don't actually enjoy it, and why you'll feel like a new man, woman, child, or other when you stop consuming and start producing. So if you've ever felt like that woman in the Life Alert commercial, and if you've fallen and you can't get up, let me give you a hand. So I'm going to break this into four major parts. One is going to be the third person or the metacognitive state. Two is going to be going over the damage that it does to your brain, your body, and your health. Three is going to be why you don't actually enjoy it. And then four is going to be why you should feel better by getting rid of the screens. So let's just get into it. Have you ever imagined like a camera sitting up in the top corner of your room while you sit there in your bed and you scroll for 4 hours on TikTok, and you imagine like, what does this look like in the third person? What do I actually look like? And if you sit there and you think about it, you're just sitting there, right? With a screen lighting up your face, and everything else is just dimly lit around you because you definitely have the lights off like a degenerate, and you're just sitting there staring at it. And every 2 or 3 minutes, you have this dead look on your face, just dead. And every 2 or 3 minutes, you'll laugh or you'll chuckle a little bit to yourself, and you'll be like, haha. And then you'll just go back to being deadpan, and then you'll feel sad, you'll feel angry, you'll feel outraged, you'll be sitting there fuming, commenting on something, and just imagine there's a camera in the corner of your room, up on the ceiling in one of the top corners, and it's just staring down, pointed straight at you, and think about what you look like in that moment. It's uncanny. You end up looking like one of those zombies from Ready Player One or the movie Upgrade, which is a absolute banger, by the way. And you need to think about not just what it looks like while you're consuming, but the genuine amount of time that's ticking by while you're sitting there doing that, right? Something so unproductive that I don't think most people can fully compute it. And then think about what you're thinking about. This is the metacognitive state, right? The fact that you can pull yourself out of your thoughts and observe yourself thinking about your thinking. And think about your thinking. Think about what's going through your brain. Think about what it is that you're actually seeing, and then ask yourself, what is this making me feel? What is this making me want to do? What is this doing to my brain? And just ask yourself those questions and recognize it. Like, that's the most important thing. Don't just mindlessly scroll. You need to sit there and think a lot about what you're looking at. I noticed this a lot when I went through a phase where I was just doing drugs all the time. I was smoking so much weed, and I would notice, like, as soon as I got high, I would see all the content that I was scrolling through on YouTube, and I was like, wow, my feed is just rage bait. My feed is just stuff that's designed to make me angry. I had to go out of my way to search for engineering content or search for anything that I found like moderately interesting, and the rest of it was just designed to make me angry. I think the majority of my YouTube content at the time of even recording this video is stuff that's like, the economy is failing, the sleep economy is the new economy, like they're coming for your daylight hours, they're coming for your brain, like all of this stuff. It's all designed to just fearmonger and make you feel horrible. And I'm not saying it's even not true, because a lot of it is definitely well-founded research by these people, but you start to notice like some YouTubers get popular and their only content is them rehashing the same video, which is kind of ironic because this is my third video on this topic, but it's true. People get popular on one thing and then they just push that one thing. What sells, right? Like, you have to ask yourself, what really sells on this platform? And what really sells on this platform is content that's designed to make you angry, is content that's designed to pull an emotion from you, because studies have shown that if we can get you into an emotionally unstable point and we can bombard you with high stimulation, and we can bombard you with these video thumbnails and everything, all these marketing tricks, that before you sit there and can enter this metacognitive state and think about your thinking, you're already unconsciously choosing to watch another video, which means you're choosing to spend more time on the platform, you're choosing to give them more of your attention, and we live in the attention economy, and that's the end. It's GG's at that point for you. So if you can imagine the third person camera and you can imagine your metacognitive state, and you can think about what you're actually looking at, and you can start to make these conscious decisions, you can take the first step towards actually getting away from all this stuff and helping to make your brain healthier, helping to make your attention span healthier, helping to make you more emotionally stable, which makes your impulse control stronger. It gives you better attention span, and we'll go over all this. So I guess it's time to get into the second point, which is the damage that it is doing to your brain, your body, and your health to be spending so much time in front of these screens and to be spending so much time pulling in all this internet slop garbage. So the first point I want to go over is the gray matter reduction. And gray matter is responsible for the brain's processing functions, like essential functions, things like your thinking, your memory, your language, your movement, your emotions. It allows you to process information, it allows you to make decisions, it allows you to learn and perceive the world around you, right? All that stuff sounds incredibly important, and it is. It's part of why when you're watching these videos, if you've been watching TikToks for a long time, there's been studies that have come out recently that show that people who watch TikTok have less gray matter in their brain. I would extend this study. I would almost hypothesize, and I'm probably correct on it, that people who watch YouTube have a lower attention span and less gray matter than people who watch movies, and people who watch movies probably have less gray matter than people who read books, and people who read books probably have even less gray matter than people who could sit through a 6-hour lecture and actually retain the information and actually stay focused on what the person's talking about. One of the first things I would point to is the fact that people back 100, 200 years ago were able to hold on to a single sentence that continued on for an increasingly long time. In the 18th century, writing often featured sentences that were 40 to 50 words long, Whereas in modern writing, your average sentence is about 15 or 20 words. So in about 100 to 200 years, we've lost 20 words on average from a sentence. That's a 50% reduction in the length of a sentence, which is crazy, right? When you really think about it, that means that people's attention spans have been growing even more and more short. People are unable to stay on a single topic or to hold a single thread for more than 20 words any longer than that, and people start to get confused. They start to lose the plot. They start to forget what it was that they even began to read in the first place, and that's a scary thing to think about, right? So when you have this reduction in gray matter, it is genuinely making you dumber, and that's the most important thing to hold on to, is it's making you dumber. It's also, when you think about what gray matter is responsible for, right? And like I said, it's responsible for very essential things like your thinking and your memory. How many of you guys have this? And I've gone through this personally, and I'm still kind of going through it, but it's almost like a lot of my childhood, I used to be able to recall it, and now I'm at the point where I barely remember things from my childhood unless somebody brings up an adjacent memory, or they come up to me and they're like, hey, remember that one time when we were younger and this thing happened? And then I'm like, ah, yes, now I remember. I had no concept of that thing even existing prior to this conversation. It gets even worse. I was using TikTok every day for at one point, where I was using it for like 9 hours a day, and I recall getting to the point where I would forget something that happened like genuinely just last week. I'd be like, I don't quite remember this thing happening, sorry. So you can think of this stuff as like, it even takes away your ability to remember things, right? And it affects your emotions as well. If you have less gray matter in your brain, your emotional processing centers are going to be working at a worse capacity, which means that you'll more easily feel these mood swings that affect you. And if you're feeling these mood swings, I think you can already imagine, like, you're going to have more anxiety, you're going to have impulse control issues, you're going to be entering depressive moods more often, and it's going to be harder and harder for you to break away and make good choices the longer that you allow it to continue on. Let's get into that. It also reduces your attention span, which is so important, and I've gone over it. I went over it just a little bit at the beginning with the sentence lengths getting shorter, but it reduces your attention span. Think about the media cycles that we have today. It used to be that something would happen and the public would hold on to it and latch onto it, and it would be in the news cycle for a month while things were working. Now it's like every single week something has to happen. Without a doubt, every single week somebody's getting fucking murdered, and that's the next big thing. Somebody's getting beat or shot or killed or whatever, and you're going to hear it in the news, and it's going to be the greatest thing to ever happen for that one week, and every single person is going to have an opinion on it. Every single person is going to make a video on it. It's all going to be fear-mongering. Donald Trump is going to say something, and people are going to freak the fuck out, and it's going to be the next biggest thing, and it'll polarize people even more. But it's like people's attention spans are so short that we cannot hold a consistent thread for long enough to actually do anything about the topic, right? We're stuck in constant cycles of hearing the next thing, getting the freaking neuron activations to get angry or feel an emotion about it, and then we form an opinion on it, and then before we can finalize our opinions, before we can actually move into the action stage, something else pops up and we start latching onto that instead. And the other thing just goes by the wayside. I mean, the Epstein thing lasted about a year, right? Like, it lasted probably about a year, and now it's gone. And that was probably the longest thread that we've been able to hold on to in human society for, I would say, the last 5-6 years at least, since COVID. Right? It's gotten so bad that since COVID, one of the only things that we can really hold on to is it has to be as big as every single one of our government leaders being a pedophile. And I think that that's insane. I think that is unhealthy for our society. I mean, obviously, everybody can see it. So let's get into the emotional instability, right? Like, emotional instability is huge. We're seeing depression rates skyrocket. We're seeing anxiety skyrocket. We're seeing mood swings in people. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but socializing with other people feels weird. It almost feels like you're trying to constantly avoid stepping on a landmine, because if you say the wrong thing, the person is going to enter into an emotional state where they start acting irrational, or they get angry, or you make them sad or whatever. They make split second judgments because their emotions are running their thought processes. They are emotionally unstable, not because they're unstable people, but because the actions that they're taking, the usage of their phone, the constant garbage in of social media is destabilizing them and making it harder for them to control their emotions, and therefore think not rationally, but think in a stable manner. It doesn't require rationality to be emotionally stable. It doesn't require you to be a perfect thinker to be emotionally stable. It requires stable emotions. And you can't have stable emotions if you don't have the attention span or the impulse control or the, you know, I want to say chemical sensitivity to things like dopamine or serotonin. Maybe that's the wrong answer. But if you don't have the sensitivity to your emotions where you can, and in this case, having sensitivity is actually a good thing, but you have the sensitivity to hold on to these emotional threads for longer, then you flip-flop through emotions for the next big dump that's coming in, right? And that is what is causing the emotional instability inside of people. And that leads to increased anxiety. I mean, if you feel increasingly more anxious every single day, like, turn off the phone, get off social media, and I guarantee you it would make you feel better over time. Like, you would feel much better after probably just a week or maybe just a month, right? Your anxiety would start to lessen if you weren't consuming things that make you anxious. And with a lowering in your anxiety, you would also see a decrease in your depressive moods. You have to tie that into the emotional instability. What is depression, right? Depression is an emotion that you feel. It tints everything. It makes life seem horrible. It makes everything not seem worth doing. It's low dopamine, but it's also not being stable, and the instability puts you in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, eventually you just burn out. And when you burn out in survival mode, it feels like there's no way out, which makes the depression even worse, which ends up making the anxiety even worse, right? So it's like an endless loop that you go through. It's like that cat that has buttered toast on its back, and then it like spins. I don't know if that's a niche reference, but yeah, it is a endless loop that you get stuck in because of the emotional instability, because of the dopamine burnout, because of the constant survival mode that you get stuck in, and it's not healthy. Another thing is the desocialization that comes with increased internet usage. I think I've noticed it a lot more. People really keep their eyes down. People are less social. They're less able to talk, and their social anxiety is even higher than it's ever been before. And it's even gotten worse to socialize with people because people have such niche interests. They have such niche ideas, and they're so locked in their echo chambers from their personally tailored, personally generated algorithm that knows every single little thing about them, that you could talk to somebody and it's almost like you're talking through them. They aren't having a conversation with you. They're having a listening session where they wait for you to finish talking so that they can talk. And I find myself guilty of this all the time too, where I will be listening to somebody, and instead of responding to them, I just end up talking about what I was going to talk about anyway. And you have to stop yourself in that moment and think, use some of that metacognitive ability that we spoke about at the beginning, and ask yourself, like, what am I really doing here? Should I not be responding to this person and actually just having a conversation with them? Necessarily you don't care about what they're talking about. I think most people don't really care about what somebody's talking about for the most part. Most people just want to talk about themselves. But it's like you have to almost push yourself to care, which will make you actually care, right? If you actually sat there and actively listened to somebody speak, you would come up with some questions to talk about. You'd come up with some things to ask them, right? You'd be able to push that ping pong, that conversation back. And then you'll start to notice that they do the desocial activity, antisocial or asocial activities to you. and then that's actually its own can of worms. But if we all, if we all did it, then we would all be able to have conversations again, which I don't think is necessarily possible. But be the change you want to see in the world. Don't just throw your hands up and be like, well, it's pointless to do it anyway. Let me just continue being desocialized and asocial or antisocial, which is also going to increase your anxiety, because isolation ruins you. And I don't think I could say that enough. Like, isolation is good in small quantities. It's sometimes it's necessary that you have to step away from your friends, your family, your society, your community, and you have to get yourself right or focus on a task. Like, sometimes that's necessary, but I'd say for the most part, even then, you need to have an anchor. If you don't talk to somebody for like a week, like, I'm talking literally nobody, like, you have no social interaction whatsoever, like, you're gonna end up being a little weird when you finally do get back to talking to people. You'll be a little antsy or a little itchy. And if this goes on for a long enough period of time, then people will like smell it on you. It's like people can smell the isolation or some shit. I don't understand how it works, but people can tell that you haven't necessarily been socialized, and you'll have to regain the social skill, because socializing is obviously a skill, right? So you'll have to regain those social skills again. And so it's best to just kind of try and avoid that. But my best advice in that situation, because I know a lot of people are isolated, not by choice right now, involuntarily isolated. And in that case, I tell you, like, focus on trying to get any sort of socialization you can. Like, if you're at the grocery store or whatever, don't use the self-checkout. Go to a cashier and talk to the cashier. Ask her about her day or him about his day or whatever, and make small talk. And if you can get good at small talk, you'll get good at deep talks, right? It's part of the game. You have to learn to love the small talk in order to enjoy the deep conversations. So let's get into number 3, which is why you don't actually enjoy any of this. And I think this is probably the most important part. This is kind of the core of a lot of addiction books that I've read, especially one that I'm pulling pretty heavily from, which is Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Smoking, which I think is honestly one of the most powerful kind of mindset gathering nonfiction books I've ever read. But you have to kind of understand what an addiction cycle is. The addiction cycle is you have the initial use of the thing, right? You get the first hit, and then some time passes and you end up feeling this like pull back to the thing. You start fantasizing about it. You start thinking like, well, it'll probably be like pretty good to try that thing again. Like, I actually enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun using it, and I want to use this in like cell phone terms, right? So you're looking at TikTok, or you're using social media, or you're watching YouTube or something, and you put it down and you walk away from it, and then you start thinking about it, and you're like, oh man, like, I really enjoyed that video I was watching. I saw some funny TikToks. I really liked the thing I saw on social media. It was a good time killer, right? I saw something interesting and novel, and it was pressing on the right buttons in my brain. Like, I want to go look at more of that stuff. And you start to obsess about it. And I'm using obsess in like a very loose way here. It's not that you're like fully going for it, although after some time you probably will get to that point, right? That's part of the addiction. But an obsession is just, it is constantly occupying your time. It is constantly occupying your thoughts, which social media, right? Like YouTube, all these things do. Your screens, they constantly make you obsessed, and they make you focused on them, right? So then you go back to the thing and you start using it again, and you lose control. So then you start to notice that you're spending too much time doing these things, so you end up feeling guilty, which leads you to stop doing the thing. And then after some time passes, you get to feel that internal frustration from not having the thing, which makes you fantasize and obsess about it, which leads you back to using it. And breaking out of that addiction cycle is not difficult at all. I really want to make that clear. It's not difficult. It's been sold to us as like breaking out of addiction is impossible. It's hard. It's something that you need to feel horrible about, but it is not difficult to break free from addiction. It is if you're trying to willpower your way through it, because as we've talked about before, these things are designed to give you impulse control issues, and it's hard to have willpower and not have impulse control at the same time, right? Like, those things are kind of antithetical to each other. And so willpower alone is not going to help you break out of the cycle. What is going to help you break out of the cycle is going to be spoiling the thing and realizing why you don't actually even enjoy it in the first place, right? It's making lists to tell you like why you don't like this, hanging them up so you can constantly see them and remember why you don't like it. Every time you pull up your phone or whatever, instead of feeling shame or guilt for, continuing to use your social media drug of choice, right? You just make the mental note that you don't actually enjoy what you're doing. You're like, oh, I actually don't like this. I don't know why I'm even doing this at this point, right? Another reason we get stuck in addiction cycles is the lack of ability to think of other options to occupy our time. One of the most important ways to break out of an addiction is to replace the time that you spent doing that habit with another habit. And when you're stuck in that cycle of addiction and it's been occupying your time for a long time, you become unable to think about what else you could be doing, or you also end up with a dopamine resistance towards wanting to do anything else, where you will think about something else. You'll be like, you know what, I think I'd rather do this instead. But then your brain is like, no, you don't want to do that. That thing is boring, or it sucks, or it's whatever excuse it can come up with to get you to go back to the high stimulation activity it will pull out of its ass, right? To get you to go back to that activity, because your brain is kind of your enemy in this case. When you get addicted to something, your brain ends up becoming a child that you have taken the iPad away from, and now it's like screaming at you to give it back. And like a good parent, or well, not a good parent, like a terrible parent, instead of putting your foot down and being like, no, I'm not going to give you the thing, you give it back to them to stop them from crying, right? And so you have to kind of push yourself out of that mindset. If you can think of at least one other thing to do, and then you're sitting there going, wow, this seems boring, you have to also step into that metacognitive state and be like, it only seems boring because I am lacking the dopamine to want to enjoy this. I don't feel that push to want to enjoy this. And again, you don't have to do that to like hopefully make the dopamine feel better. It's not going to work. That's not going to make you like suddenly want to do the thing. But it is, the recognition is the first step, right? Recognizing is very much the first step towards understanding. The next thing is, it's all rage bait anyway, and it's AI slop. It's low effort content. It's rage bait. It's slop. It's things that are just designed to make you feel like dog shit. And you don't want any of that. I'm just telling you, like, you really don't want any of that at all. You want to step away from that. You want to be, like, think about it. What would you rather have? Reduced gray matter, a smooth brain? Would you rather have your attention span reduced to nothing and atomized, your emotions completely unstable, your impulse control completely gone, your anxiety through the roof, your depression through the roof, and your ability to socialize atomized, and also your ability to remember things gone? Like, would you rather have that, or would you rather touch some fucking grass and get off the cell phone? Like, it's a pretty damn obvious choice. You could get rid of all of those problems if you just stopped using, right? So think about the fact that you genuinely don't want any of those things, right? And you don't want to watch rage bait all day. That shit sucks. Like, it's so boring after a while. Not even boring. It's just miserable. It just makes you feel like shit. And you don't want to watch low effort content or AI slop. Like who genuinely wants to watch AI slop other than a 2-year-old, right? You want to watch something that's actually going to make you feel good, or if you can even do it, you want to read a fucking book. I almost know people want to read books, dude. I think book sales have gone up, but reading has gone down, which shows that people do want to do something else. They just are unable to do it. Another thing is, it actually increases your boredom, right? It doesn't decrease boredom. We're not curing boredom by constantly filling our brain with bullshit. We're just pushing it off and letting it compile until we finally do get to a point where we have to put it down. And then as soon as we do put it down, we're like, damn, I'm fucking bored. Well, yeah, you're bored because you've been pushing it off until the very last possible moment, and now your brain is dumping all of its boredom right onto you all at once. All right, so let's step into the final topic, which is why you should feel better by getting rid of the screens, right? If you get off the internet, you'll be in happier moods because your dopamine is not going to be constantly wanting to go back to the high stimulating activity. It's going to instead because your dopamine's still got to go somewhere, right? It's not just going to fucking disappear into the ether, right? You're still going to be producing dopamine. It's just going to start wanting to do other things instead, which will put you in genuinely happier moods, right? Why are we in bad moods? We're in bad moods because we're doing things that we know we should not be doing, or doing things that we don't want to be doing in the first place, right? And that we end up in those like guilt, shame cycles, those things that constantly make us feel worse. And so if you want to be in a happier mood, you get off of these high stimulating activities, and things that are low stimulation start to seem more fun. That's funny how that works, right? If you're used to seeing 10 out of 10s all day, every day, if you finally see if you see two 5 out of 10s, you're going to be like, damn, that's nowhere near as interesting as seeing one 10 out of 10, right? But if you never see a 10 out of 10 again, and all you see are 5 out of 10s, eventually you're going to be like, I see a 5 out of 10, that's fine. I see a 6 out of 10, that's fantastic, right? I used to have this joke when I was in the military. We called it field goggles. And basically, you would go out into the field, and if you were out there for long enough, every single army girl that was around would start to look more attractive. And I remember specifically, I was out in Louisiana at JRTC, and I saw this girl, and I told my buddy, I was like, bro, she is the hottest woman I think I've ever seen in my entire life. And he goes, no, bro, that's just the field goggles that are getting to you. And I was like, no, man, you have no idea. Like, she's actually so attractive. And then sure enough, like a week later, we get out of the field, and I see this girl. After I start seeing other regular women, I see this girl again. And let's just say I wasn't going up to her to ask for her number. So it's important to keep in mind that a lot of this stuff is relational, right? And like I said, dopamine is relational. It is not, linear. It's not, oh, this thing gives me more dopamine, therefore it makes me more happy. It's, I've been only getting these high dopamine things, so anything else that seems lower dopamine is not going to make me happy. It's related to the highest thing that is going to make you happy. And I use happy as a very loose term here. When I say happy, I just mean the thing that's going to give you more dopamine. It also leads to less boredom. As I've already stated, these things push off the boredom until the last possible moment, right? And then by the time you get there, you feel super bored. These, getting away from that content actually stretches out the feelings of boredom, and they make you less bored overall, because you aren't going to be constantly comparing every single moment to these high stimulation activities. You'll be comparing them to the other less stimulating activities. And so even something like sitting in silence and just listening to the environment will seem less boring than it is right now. You'll also see less of a feeling of purposelessness, or I guess more purpose, right? When you're not constantly consuming the globe's content of demoralizing bullshit, you're going to feel more purpose, right? You're going to start replacing these purposeless hobbies, these things that don't bring you any sort of long-term growth, things like scrolling on fucking social media or watching endless content or consuming, right? You get away from that and you start producing something, you start actually making something, even if it's something simple, and that's going to bring you more feeling of purpose. And feeling of purpose is a very strong drive for a lot of human beings. I'm sure most of us understand that at this point, but you have to have a purpose in life, whatever that purpose is. You'll also feel lower feelings of anxiety, right? As your emotional stability starts to come back and your dopamine levels start to stabilize and you stop entering depressive moods as often, you'll feel a lot less anxiety, and you'll start to feel, I guess, better about the day ahead. You'll start to feel more in control. And as soon as you start to feel more in control and you step out of that survival mode, you can actually enter into growth, right? And growth is incredibly important to reducing feelings of anxiety, because anxiety is not a bad thing. Anxiety is a very important emotion that human beings need to feel. Anxiety is the thing that makes us understand what the future is going to hold if we continue on a current trajectory. And a lot of the times people's anxieties are blown way the fuck out of proportion. And I'm not saying that everybody's anxiety is super valid, but the feeling that it makes you feel is valid. Not necessarily the thoughts, but the feeling, right? This feeling of like, oh, I feel stressed because I'm not doing my laundry. The world's going to end, right? That's not a valid thought, but what is a valid thought is, hey, you should probably do your fucking laundry, right? So you need to understand that anxiety is an important feeling to have, even if the thoughts are crazy. And that kind of leads into this one of these last few points that I'm going to make, which is the feeling of impending doom, right? I think a lot of people get stuck in this feeling. A lot of people I talk to are stuck in this feeling that the world is literally going to end in like the next couple of years. And I've been there personally. Like, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think 2030 is probably going to be some ridiculous year. But the world is not literally going to end tomorrow. And even if it was, feeling the impending doom is not going to do anything about it. It's just going to actually bring it on even faster. So it's kind of important to step away from all of this stuff and get that lower sense of impending doom. It'll put you in a better position to actually solve whatever impending doom is coming, right? It'll help you be better prepared for it. You'll also see less mood swings. You'll be able to get your rhythm actually back. It's going to reduce any sort of ADHD-like symptoms that you have, and I genuinely believe it'll also reduce any sort of autism-like symptoms that you'd have. You'll also get to go outside and smell the roses and touch some fucking grass. So, I've kind of gone over all this stuff, and like I've said before, I really don't like doing synthesis because I think synthesis takes out a lot of the actual thinking that you need to do to kind of understand what's going on, understand what I'm talking about. But just to break it down, just to give you the 4 big major points again, like think about what you're doing. Enter into that metacognitive state more often. Think about your thinking. Think about the damage that this is doing to your brain, your body, and your health. Think about why you don't actually enjoy this, and think about why you will feel better by getting rid of your screens, right? And I don't mean necessarily getting entirely rid of them, but what I mean is start making a conscious effort to do other things and to break away from this endless scroll. And when you start to do that, you'll come back to these after a while. And this is kind of why I think this video is coming out probably going to be 3 or 4 weeks after my last couple of videos were posted. And part of that was because I've taken my own advice. Like, I've gotten way more off the internet, and I can already tell that, like, I come back and I start watching YouTube again, and it's just boring, man. Like, it's not fun. You start to realize, like, wow, I wish I was genuinely doing literally anything else with my time. So, I really hope that this is helpful to some people. I really hope that you've pulled something out of this. And I want to hear, like, about you in the comments. Like, I want to hear what you guys have been going through, and I want to kind of, like, understand that, we're not alone as Americans, and, like, there is a lot of people out there that actually do care. So if you've made it to the end of the video, especially this video, damn, I was not expecting to go off for about 40 minutes, but if you've made it to the end of this video, please consider, dropping a like and subscribing. I really do know that helps, and I don't like asking for it, but I know it really does help a lot. So I really appreciate every single one of you that have made it this far to the end of this video, and I'm really, really, really grateful for every single one of you. And, thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.